Hello everyone, my name is Gerald Mashange. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Agricultural Economics. Today's presentation will be on the global wheat market. This work was done by myself and Dr. Alan Featherstone. So currently, US wheat producers are facing challenges, particularly in the changing consumption patterns and preferences of consumers, and there's increased competition from abroad. The objective of this presentation is to give you an overview of the current environment, domestically and internationally, and also take a look at how the market has changed over time. We will then identify some of the drivers of the changes that we are observing. Beginning with supply and demand. Both global wheat supply and demand continue to increase. Supply is represented by the green bars, and demand is represented by the orange line. Supply has outpaced demand, and this is being driven by stronger consumption and production. When we compare the global stocks to use ratio to the ending stocks, where this time the green bars are ending stocks and the orange line is the stocks to use ratio, we can see that the stocks to use ratio has been increasing since 2012. This indicates that the level of carryover stock relative to wheat use has been increasing every year. Let's take a look at how production has evolved over time. We are plotting global wheat production from 1961 to 2018. This illustration will be up on Ag Manager for you to explore. The log of yield is plotted on the y-axis, and the log of area harvested is plotted on the x-axis. The size of the bubble is proportionate to production. In the 1960s, the USSR and the United States were the dominant producers, dwarfing the production levels of the next biggest players, China and India. Over time, China, India, Pakistan, Australia, and Argentina ramp up their production. And since the breakup of the Soviet Union, we see the emergence of Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan as major wheat producers. Today, China is the largest wheat producer, followed by India, then Russia, and the United States is now the fourth largest producer of wheat in the world. In terms of production, unlike the soybean market, the wheat market is not dominated by just a few producers. There are a lot of countries in this intermediate production area. Although not as large as the dominant producers of today, it's clear that there are many wheat producers. Let's now take a look at the share of wheat production. The United States share of production has decreased over the past few decades. It had a share above 20% in the 1960s and 1970s. Today, it stands at less than 8%. The decline is mainly attributed to increasing global competition. This is lowering domestic returns in wheat, and alternative crops are offering a better value proposition for US farmers. Again, China is the largest producer of wheat in the world. In 2018, they commanded a share of 18% of global wheat production. They mainly produce for domestic consumption. The second largest producer, India, commanded a share of 14% in 2018, followed by Russia with a share of 10%. Overall, production of wheat continues to increase. For the marketing year 2019-2020, the world is estimated to produce 769 million tons. China, the largest producer, was estimated to produce 133.5 million tons. But due to the floodings that they're experiencing, this estimate will likely be revised lower. India is estimated to produce 103.6 million tons, which is a 3.73% increase from the previous year. Russia is estimated to produce 73.6 million tons, which is a 2.69% increase. And the United States is estimated to produce 52.258 million tons, which is a 1.86% increase from the prior year. For the 2021 marketing year, the United States wheat production is estimated to come in at 50 million tons, which will be about 4.3% lower than the current 2019-2020 marketing year. This is due to lower yields and decreased planted area. EU's production is expected to fall by 10%. As a bloc, they are expected to produce 131 million tons. The crop has suffered from excessive rainfall and continental drought in the spring. The hardest hit countries are France and Britain. Canadian and Australian prices are lower on the expectation of a good harvest. The Canadian harvest is expected to be the biggest ever. Production estimates are coming in at 32.348 million tons. In recent weeks, there was news of lower production estimates from Russia, Argentina, and the EU due to weather, and as a result, wheat futures rallied on this news. But futures prices have since fallen. Now we expect Russia and Australia to have better harvests. The US dollar has fallen extensively since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, currently trading near 2-year lows, but this will likely assist US exporters. Next, let's take a look at consumption. We were interested in seeing how wheat consumption has changed with income over time. We chart domestic consumption on the y-axis as kg per capita per year, and income on the x-axis as GDP per capita in constant 2015 US dollars. Excluding North America, other regions are increasing the consumption of wheat as their income increases. This suggests that the consumers are not substituting wheat for other goods as they become wealthier. Global consumption for the marketing year 2019-2020 was estimated at 752 million tons, which was the highest on record. In 2017, more than 66% of wheat was used for food, about 20% was used for livestock feed, and about 3 to 5% was being used for seed and industrial use. Higher wheat consumption is being driven by higher food, seed, and industrial use. Global feed use, however, was 5.13% lower from the prior year, coming in at 135 million tons. The United States consumption for the marketing year 2019-2020 had a total domestic use of 29.8 million tons, which was 0.57% lower than the prior year. Feed and residual use came in at 2 million tons, which is a 16.82% decrease from the prior year. Seed use is up by 2% at 1.63 million tons, and food use is up by 0.78% at 26.18 million tons. Overall, increasing competition from other feed grains, particularly in protein content, will likely continue to affect wheat use in feed. We now move on to trade. Overall, there are strong signs for wheat trade. Underpinned by increasing demand and greater production, exports and imports are growing. According to the Observatory of Economic Complexity, the total value of wheat trade was $45 billion in 2018. Like production, the United States has lost a lot of market share over the past few decades. It had over 50% market share in the 1970s. Its share now stands at 14%. Its share of exports generally fluctuates based on competition from foreign producers and the strength of the US dollar relative to the respective currencies of its trading partners. Along with the United States, Canada has also lost a share of the export market. Russia is now the largest exporter of wheat. Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and France have gained market share. It is pretty clear that other countries besides the top exporters are also gaining market share. We can see that wheat exports have increased over time. In 2018, 190 million tons were exported. Since 2000, 90% of global wheat exports came from Russia, the EU, Canada, the US, Australia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Argentina. In 2018, Russia exported 43.9 million tons of wheat. Canada exported 22.8 million tons, and the United States exported 22.5 million tons. Russia's wheat primarily goes to North Africa and East Asia. They struggle with the logistics of transporting their grains. They do, however, have plans to further subsidize their grain transportation. And Russia has a long-term grain industry development strategy. In particular, they would like to address the uncompetitiveness in logistics. By 2035, they would like to improve their position as a global grain producer and supplier. They plan to harvest 140 million tons of grain per year. This plan will cost around $70 billion. The US is struggling with marketing its wheat. There is weak demand for US wheat as they struggle to compete on protein content and price. We also considered what share of production is exported. As of 2017, out of the top wheat producers, Canada exports 73.58% of its wheat. followed by Argentina at 71.21%. The United States exports 57.62% of its production. This slide illustrates how rapidly Russian wheat exports have risen over the years relative to the United States. Russian wheat is sought out for its high protein content, making it extremely competitive. Next, let's look at imports. Looking at the global share of wheat imports, China's share of imports has decreased over time, reflecting their increased production and greater self-reliance. Japan's share of imports has also decreased. Egypt, Indonesia, and Algeria have increased their share of wheat imports. Overall, wheat imports are rising. In 2018, 181 million tons of wheat were imported. The top importers were Indonesia, importing 10.1 million tons, Egypt, 9.3 million tons, and Algeria, importing 8.4 million tons. Demand has risen due to rising population and rising incomes. Major wheat importers are mainly developing nations. According to Jennifer Bond of the ERS, these countries are constrained by their production ability, so they need to import. The largest growth markets for wheat imports are in North Africa, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Sudan, the Middle East, in Iran, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Syria, and in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. Looking at the marketing year 2019-2020, the top US export markets are different from the top 10 importers of wheat. This poses opportunities for US wheat exporters. The largest importer of US wheat is Mexico, and the Philippines is now the second largest importer of US wheat, followed by Japan. Above the bars, we included the 3-year change in the amount of US wheat imported. The Philippines has increased its imports by 17.48% over the past 3 years. China has lowered its imports from the United States by 34.47%, while Italy has increased its imports by 128%. In conclusion, a growing population and rising incomes suggest wheat trade and consumption will continue to grow. US exporters are experiencing weak demand for their wheat. This is due to stronger competition and pricing. However, the weaker dollar will likely assist exporters this marketing year. Domestically, wheat feed use fell by 16.82%, while globally it fell by 5.13%. There is a shift in preferences occurring. Wheat for feed use will likely continue to struggle against alternative feed grains. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time.